Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. Let me start with some macro thoughts. The US dollar was offered across the board late yesterday after the Fed. Look at this from JS Blockland. Buy dollar, trade-weighted dollar down almost 10% since December. The point I will make is that actually we're at very, very key long-term support at this point. So I, for one, would not want to be selling it now at these levels. I think I would be more inclined to trade against the trend. The Dow closed at a fresh high following slightly dovish FOMC statement describing inflation as running below 2, not somewhat below 2. Charlie Bilello, the best of times. S&P all-time high, Dow Jones all-time high, Nasdaq all-time high, global Dow all-time high, volatility eradicated. Home thoughts. This is fabulous. Nearly half of the atoms that make up our bodies may have formed beyond the Milky Way and travel to the solar system on intergalactic winds. Driven by giant exploding stars, astronomers claim. The dramatic conclusion emerges from computer simulations that reveal how galaxies grow over eons by absorbing huge amounts of material that is blasted out of neighboring galaxies when stars explode at the end of their lives. Powerful supernova explosions can fling trillions of tons of atoms into space with such ferocity that they escape their home galaxy's gravitational pull and fall towards larger neighborhoods in enormous clouds that travel at hundreds of kilometers per second. Science is very useful for finding our place in the universe, said Daniel Angles Alcazar, an astronomer at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. In some sense, we are extragalactic visitors or immigrants in what we think of as our galaxy. Our origins are much less local than we thought, said Faucher Giguer. This study gives us a sense of how things around us are connected to distant objects in the sky. And I've actually studied cosmology. I found it so fascinating and it's so incredible, frankly. That takes me back to my favorite quote, Jalaluddin Rumi. We come spinning out of nothingness, scattering stars like dust. And then on that note, I like this, an absolutely surreal moment as we reach the crater of the Kilauea volcano and the clouds parted, revealing an epic view of the Milky Way. This is from Ricky Forbes. Just a few more home thoughts. Mark Rothko, Untitled Orange and Yellow from 1956. And he said, silence is so accurate. And then another Rothko, number 1 from 1962. I'm not an abstractionist. I'm not interested in the relationship of color or form or anything else. I'm interested only in expressing basic human emotions, tragedy, ecstasy, doom, and so on. He also said pictures must be miraculous. Asia Times is carrying a report, an interview with a CIA analyst who's saying that Beijing poses a greater threat than Russia. CIA analyst has offered a rare public glimpse into American intelligence analysis of China. Michael Collins, Deputy Assistant Director and head of the agency's East Asia Mission Center, believes more attention should be focused on China, and that recent public angst about Russia is distracting America from the threat posed by China. There's been a lot of talk about Russia as a competitor, a country that sees the liberal international order as something they don't necessarily subscribe to. That is, actively engaged in trying to undermine US influence in various areas around the world. and that has the capability to do it, Collins said. I would argue China applies to all three of those as well, and increasingly has more power to do far more about that issue. China-US competition is not limited to Asia, but is also visible around the world, pointing to China's recent launch of a major military base on the strategic Horn of Africa in Djibouti. The Chinese base is located close to the US militaries based in the same nation. An additional problem for Beijing relates to what Collins termed domestic political vulnerability and stability. This is a key issue. Unfortunately, I think the Chinese have learned over the last several years that they've been able to take coercive approaches to moving into the South China Sea and in other areas, and I could apply the same model to other issues, be it in the economic arena or the political arena around the area. They've gotten away with it without much of a blowback, he said. I concluded by saying Xi Jinping struts the global stage, has established new facts on the ground in the South China Seas, and is currently goading Narendra Modi. The pivot to Asia is being rolled back. China steps up mourning to Botswana over Dalai Lama visit on Wednesday. He's reviled by Beijing as a dangerous separatist. China is a major investor in Botswana's economy. China has already expressed its point of view about the Dalai Lama's visit, Foreign Ministry spokesman Liu Kang told the Daily News Briefing. Issues relating to Tibet concern China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We demand the relevant country earnestly respects China's core interests and makes the correct political decision on this matter, they said. Trump. You will recall my article on the 26th of May, Apocalypse Trump. And this is from David Inglis. The number of news stories tracked by Bloomberg that contain the word impeachment from 1990 to the present day. On the 22nd of May, I said, if we are headed to an apocalypse Trump, then I'm afraid the dollar has a lot further to fall. And as you saw from that chart from JS Blockland, it is falling substantially. But as I said, I think we're nearing a floor. The Making of the Tabloid Presidency is an article I found in New York Books, which is reviewing a book called Devil's Bargain, Steve Bannon, Donald Trump, and the Storming of the Presidency. 6 months into Donald Trump's presidency, the bond between him and his base remains strong, largely unaffected for now by the mounting scandals, talk of impeachment, and Trump's stalled agenda. It is a testament to his adroit intertwining of Bannon's story with Trump's that we're not certain which of the two figures has sold the bigger part of himself to the other in the broader sense. They are co-authors of our moment's tabloid conservatism. Describing Bannon, where he visited Hong Kong in 2005 to put together a licensing deal involving the video game World of Warcraft. He discovered the teeming community of gamers, millions of intense young men who disappeared for days or even weeks at a time in alternate realities. He sensed the powerful currents that run just below the surface of the internet and began to wonder if those forces could be harnessed, and if so, how he might exploit them. By this time, Bannon was also producing and writing political films of his own, crude armies of the night clashes that were frankly modelled on Leni Riefenstahl, The Gathering Storm, The Threat of Violence, the Wagnerian soundtracks, The Technique of Fear. Green approaches Trump as a serious figure with the best raw political instincts of any Republican in his generation. Trump saw politics not as a form of entertainment, but as pure entertainment, aimed at specific audiences and markets. He also knew a good deal about tabloid politics. Green shrewdly sees a second motive for Trump's clinging to the birther fantasy. It tapped into a huge new constituency. If Trump is easily distracted, Bannon is not. Green's book is in part a cautionary tale. Both Trump and Bannon have a history of being taken lightly only to rear up and catch the skeptics by surprise. Euro-dollar, we're currently at 117.22. Take a look at these two charts that were issued by Bloomberg, and really we are very overextended right now in my view. Let's go and have a look at the currency markets. Euro-dollar 117.23. Dollar index broken down through that key level of 93.50, 93.36. Japanese yen 111.18. Swissy 0.9506. The pound 131.38. Australian dollar, which has been all over the place, 0.8030. Crossed 80. Indian rupee 64.135, South Korean won 11.1164, Brazilian real 313.91, Egyptian pound 17.89, and the South African rand a little bit firmer at 12.87. Dollar index, take a look at this. Do you remember I've been speaking about this level of 93.50 for quite a while? We've broken down through it. Diageo released their their results. Organic net sales up 4.3%. Have a look at one of their infographics they put out to get a better flavor. Facebook continues to be one of the fastest growing and most profitable tech companies in the world. Revenue rose 45% in the second quarter. Nowhere near the incredible pace of growth that started in late 2015, but hard to complain about a company of Facebook's size growing only 47% in the last 6 months, and a company that has 45% operating margins. Facebook has been getting higher prices for the ads it sells. This has helped offset the slowing growth in the number of ads in the newsfeed. Facebook revenue growth year on year 44.8% lower since quarter 3 2015. Gold, last time I looked, was around the 1261 level. Got a bit of a bounce off the back of the sell-off in the dollar. Crude oil surged 1.8% yesterday. We're in this rebound moment for crude. I think it might unwind around here. We're at $48.70 in New York. Copper prices have had a big move. Take a look at this chart from Francis Donald. This is what's supporting credit in Zambia in particular, and also what's helped is they had a very good harvest. Tanzanian president urges increased control of mineral wealth. He's been on the warpath. Tanzanians are being cheated out of the country's mineral wealth and should take more control of their natural resources, President Magufuli has said. Investors in Tanzania's mining industry have stolen from the country by failing to provide a fair share of the revenue they generate from gold and other minerals. We are surrounded by wealth. We have to stand up and protect it. It shouldn't happen that we have all this wealth, sit on it, while others come and benefit from it by cheating us. Magufuli is overhauling the country's mining industry as the government targets doubling its contribution to GDP to 10% by 2025. In March, he banned mineral exports and ordered an audit to identify loopholes that he said result in income losses. The government this month approved laws that would enable the state to renegotiate contracts with mining and energy companies. Dispute between Acacia and the government escalated over the past 2 weeks. The authorities detained at least 2 of the company's senior employees for questioning. Acacia shares have fallen 57% so far this year. And I wrote about this on the 11th of July when I said recent events in both Tanzania and South Africa's mining sectors are tipping both jurisdictions into an uninvestable and twilight zone. And I said it with respect to the Tanzanian mining sector, those other than Acacia who are in situ are surely now going to take a very careful look. Burundi, the president paid a visit to Tanzania, first visit in 2 years. Investors are overlooking Zambia's political risk, buying the nation's assets as the price of copper, its biggest export, rises, as we previously discussed. Yield on Zambia's €1 billion Eurobonds due 2024 have fallen 135 basis points this year to 7.55% on Wednesday. Interesting video, view on Africa, no DRC election this year. This is ISS Africa. 2 investigations into corruption in resource-rich DR Congo show why it stays so poor. DRC ranked 176 out of 187 on the latest UN Human Development Index, and 2 new investigations have shed more light on why that's the case. Despite being Africa's biggest copper producer and the world's leading source of cobalt, with up to $10 billion worth of those minerals mined and sold abroad, an investigation by Global Witness, the anti-corruption charity, shows that as little as 6% of DR Congo's annual mining exports reach the national budget. As a result, despite the country's vast mineral wealth, an average Congolese national is amongst the poorest on the planet. The reality described, a paradox of poverty, is a consequence of large-scale corruption which ensures very little of the country's wealth finds its way back to the people. Between 2013 and 2015, mining revenue of up to $1.3 billion, twice the amount the country spends annually on health and education, failed to reach the treasury. The shortfall is blamed on a dysfunctional state-owned mining company and opaque national tax agencies, as well as corrupt networks linked to President Kabila's regime. Tiny Roland, whom I met severally because his son was at school with me and used to get £50 a week pocket money when I was getting 5. Very interesting article in the Mail and Guardian, businessman, spy, friend of apartheid. Talking about the Marikana incident, which was Lonmin, which was originally owned by Tiny Roland. He was born in India to a British mother and a German father. Both had been interned in a camp during World War I. Because of their German links, Roland would spend part of World War II in a detention camp on the Isle of Man. During the 1930s, he lived in Germany for a spell and joined the Hitler Youth. He made his first fortune not in Britain, but in the colony of Southern Rhodesia, where his good looks and upper-class accent charmed the local white elite. He was on good terms with African heads of state, including Gaddafi, Kenneth Kaunda, Jomo Kenyatta, and Daniel Arap Moi. Easy access to a privileged relationship with Hastings bandits that evaded laundering large-scale transfer pricing after a massive underpayment of taxes, easy access to US CIA Chief Bill Casey, Israeli intelligence agency Mossad Deputy Chief David Kimchi, Aidan Khashoggi, assistant, and Ronald Reagan's Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs in the 1980s, Chester Crocker. Very interesting character, and of course the story around Harrods is an extraordinary story all of itself. Well worth reading this article, gives you a lot of flavour. He was a very charismatic figure. South African all-share up 8.26% this year. I think we're at a record high. Dollar versus rand, the rand has firmed up in line with the rest of the markets. We're now at 1287.49. Nigerian all-share, my goodness, up 36.71% so far this year. Ghana Stock Exchange up 33.79% so far this year. See, Africa really took off in May. Kenya sold a 10-year Treasury bond at 12.966% versus 15.039% at the previous auction, but they only sold 5.19 billion out of an offering of 30 billion. Moses Muthui, who is a friend and at Barclays, says banks have moved over 104 billion shillings, that's $1 billion, of customer deposits into government paper since the rate law came into effect. Nation Media reported first half earnings per share was up 4.796%. Turnover was down 6.4%. They managed costs down lower at minus 8.6%. EPS was up 4.796%. Interim dividend unchanged. Total turnover was down 6.4% on the back of a decline in print revenue. The flagship newspaper, which is the Daily Nation, saw revenues decline 7%. East African saw revenues decline 21%. Business Daily down 3%. Broadcasting, that did well. NTV Kenya up 18%. Digital was the standout, but we don't know what the base number is, up 54% year on year. It's the headline revenue drop which has really caught my attention. Interesting article, thirsty city after months of water rationing, Nairobi may run dry. We know that, we haven't been getting water for days, weeks even. For the team managing Nairobi's water, the stakes have never been so high. Water rationing has been going on in Kenya's capital since the 1st of January, and supplies might run dry by September. The last 2 rainy seasons were dismal. More rain is not expected until October and cannot be counted on. For the city's 3.4 million residents, the possibility of the entire city running dry is so beyond their control that most bat the thought away and soldier on, storing water in jerry cans when taps flow. But the problem is getting harder to ignore. On 14th July, Nairobi City County declared a cholera outbreak, citing among other causes irregular supply of potable water. At the end of every rainy season, we have excess water, but this year, no, we're only 37% full. This is the storage dam in Dakaini. For the last 12 months, water has been short. The rains in October to December 2016 delivered just 268 millimeters of water, compared to 700 millimeters of water expected from rainfall patterns in recent years. It's not a good story, and I hope we get ahead of this. Nairobi All Share surged further. It's up 18.76% year to date, closed at 24.5-month highs. Safaricom rallied 1.06% to close at 23.75, which is a fresh record closing high. And the NSE 20 closed up 18.27% year to date and at a 13-month closing high. This is an Africa-wide phenomenon.